ॐ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णो वन्दे जगद्गुरुं श्रीकृष्णो वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। Pranams from Dr. R.J. Kalpana. Welcome to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. In the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, we studied the dilemma of Arjuna, the dejection and fear that he faced while contemplating the thought of having to go to war with his family and thereby destroying races, families, lineages, and perhaps even entire kingdoms and societies. And he turns to his friend Krishna, and like a true seeker of the truth, he offers himself up as his disciple, and he prays for instruction as to what is dharma and what is the path of action that he must follow. Krishna, for the first time in chapter 2 in the Bhagavad Gita, steps up into the role as a guru, a Jagat Guru, and he plunges Arjuna directly into the analytical approach of discerning reality through knowledge and understanding, which we all know as Sankhya Yoga. Now, Sankhya Yoga is part of the intellectual section of the Hindu canon of writings. They are known as Shatadarshanas, meaning 6 schools of philosophy which are based on the Vedas. And these 6 schools of philosophy are the 6 instruments of true teaching of the truth. Each school has developed, systematized, and correlated the various parts of the Veda in its own way. Every philosophy that has since sprung forth, whether in the West or in the East, can trace its roots back to these 6 schools of philosophy. And each school of philosophy has its own Sutrakara, the one great rishi who systematized the doctrines of the school and put them in short aphorisms or sutras. The Shatadarshanas are Nyaya Shastra, founded by Maharishi Gautama; Vaishika Shastra, founded by Maharishi Kanad; Yoga Shastra, founded by Maharishi Patanjali; Sankhya Shastra, founded by Maharishi Kapila; Mimamsa, or what is known as Purva Mimamsa, founded by Maharishi Jaimini; Vedanta or Uttara Mimamsa, founded by Maharishi Vyasa. So these darshanas, the Shatadarshanas, or the schools of philosophy, are divided into three pairs of aphoristic compositions which explain the philosophy of the Vedas in a very rationalistic method of approach. And each set of sutras has got its own bhashya, vritti, vartika, vyakhyana and tippani. A sutra is an aphorism or a short formula with the least possible number of syllables, without any ambiguity, containing the very essence, embracing all meanings, distilled to perfection and absolutely faultless in nature. Bhashya is an elaborate exposition, a commentary on the sutras with word by word meaning of the aphoristic precepts, their running translations together with the individual views of the commentators. The most famous one is Sri Bhashyam by Sri Ramanujachari on the Brahma Sutras. Vritti is a short glossary explaining the aphorisms in a more elaborate way, but not as extensively as a bhashya. Vartika is a critical study made out of that which is said and left unsaid. Vyakhyana is a running explanation in a easier language of the elucidation said in the original. A tippani is just like a vritti but less orthodox. It has explanation of difficult words and phrases occurring in the original. So in the second chapter of Sankhya Yoga, Sri Krishna, without wasting any time, immediately plunged Arjuna, and we fortunate and blessed readers of the Bhagavad Gita, directly into the understanding, knowledge of what is real and what is unreal. And so therefore we come in this session to the third chapter of Karmayoga. Now in Sanatan Dharma we have three types of karma: Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma and Kriyamana karma. Sanchita karma is defined as cumulative karma, the entire stock of karma or the entire stock of samskaras that we carry with us. Prarabdha karma is that part of Sanchita karma that is selected for us to undergo the bhog in this particular lifetime. So basically, if we want to look at it with an analogy, Sanchita karma is that suitcase of samskaras, is that little suitcase of past impressions and memories that we carry around, whereas prarabdha karma is like an overnight bag that we require for immediate use. Kriyamana karma is everything that we currently produce in our present life. And so here a very important question takes place, that if everything is predestined, it's bhagya vidata, right? Fatalistic. Then what use is this of a life? And in this chapter of chapter 3 on Karmayoga, we will see how even though we come burdened with our sanchita and prarabdha karma, we still are in complete control of our kriyamana karma. And Krishna here explains the necessity of distinguishing the two, and he explains how we are able to transcend our current karma and thereby attain liberation. Because it is only in the human life that we can change our future destiny. Of all the sentient beings in this world, only humans possess free will. They have the ability to decide which path to take. The path of greatness or the path of ignominy. At every moment in time, they are faced, they are gifted with that choice. And so therefore, we come in this session to chapter 3. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Atha Tritiyodhyayaha. Karma Yoga, or the yoga in action. In Shloka 1, Arjuna said, Krishna, if you consider knowledge as superior to action, why then do you urge me to this dreadful action, Keshava? That is a very atypical question that Arjuna asks. A bewildered disciple will put forth after listening to 72 shlokas on the yoga of knowledge. Arjuna is still more confused and says that you have asserted, Krishna, that knowledge is so much more superior to action. And yet here you are urging me to pick up my weapons and start a war. In Shloka 2, you are as it were puzzling my mind by these seemingly involved expressions. Therefore, tell me definitely the one discipline by which I may obtain the highest good. A very proper disciple, focused on the goal as always. Tell me that by which I may attain the highest good. A warrior, a Kshatriya, having no time for philosophical discussions, brief, curt, abrupt, to the point, Arjuna seeks answers from his Guru, Shri Krishna, and saying, "You have confused me with all this knowledge that you have shared about the presence of the causal body, about the temporal nature of the physical body, and yet here you are exhorting me once again to fight. So please tell me definitely which is the course of action that I must perform." Shloka 3. Shri Bhagavan said, "Arjuna, in this world, two courses of sadhana, or spiritual discipline, have been enunciated by me in the past. In the case of the Sankhya Yogi, the sadhana proceeds along the path of knowledge, whereas in the case of the Karmayogi, it proceeds along the path of action." And so here, for the first time, Krishna offers the choice to the individual. There are two principal modes of sadhana, or spiritual discipline. One is identity of the soul and the oversoul, the Jivatma and the Paramatma. And the other is the discipline of doing one's duty, discharging one's responsibilities as prescribed by the scriptures, as ordained by nature and circumstances. And so Krishna here in Shloka 3 talks about there are some people, the Sankhya Yogis, who chose to walk along the path of knowledge, whereas there are others, the Karma Yogis, who proceed along the path of action. Depending on their interest, depending on the tendencies of their own nature, they choose whichever discipline most suits them and is attractive to them. Shloka 4. Na karmana manarambha naishkarmyam purushoshnute na cha sanyasanadeva siddhim samadhigacchati. Man does not attain freedom from action, culmination of the discipline of action, without entering upon action. Nor does he reach perfection, culmination of the discipline of knowledge, merely by ceasing to act. Again, this chapter 3, Shloka 4, is said to be one of those shlokas that Sri Krishna had verbally recited to Arjuna at the Kurukshetra. And therefore he says here, it is not possible to attain freedom from action without performing any action. Similarly, it is not possible to attain perfection merely by ceasing to act. So bondage from action, our karma, bondage from our karma is a state which can only be attained by performing one's duties in a disinterested way, and it cannot be attained by merely ceasing to act. If our actions lead to bondage, the logical decision would be to cease to act. But Krishna here says that man does not attain freedom from action without entering upon action. So whichever path we choose, the path of Karmayoga or the path of Sankhya Yoga, performance of one's duties is of primary import. And therefore, the non-performance of a duty is an obstacle in reaching perfection. And declaring that external renunciation of action is of a very minor import in Sankhya Yoga. And therefore, he says, it is necessary to perform action because total renunciation of action is physically impossible as long as we are bound to this dimension of matter. Shloka 5. Surely none can ever remain inactive even for a moment, for everyone is helplessly driven to action by nature-born qualities. And so Krishna in this shloka explains that there is nobody who can be inactive. Breathing, however involuntary it might be, is still an activity. The very act of sitting still and doing nothing is also an activity. And everyone is driven to act simply because they are bound to their tendencies. They have nature-born qualities, meaning the tendencies of nature, the sattvic, rajasic and tamasic gunas which they are subject to, drives them towards action. The purity and the impurity of the action depends on the sattvic, rajasic and tamasic tendencies of theirs. And therefore, Shri Krishna says that none can remain without action even for a single moment. In Shloka 6, he who outwardly restraining the organs of sense and action sits mentally dwelling on the objects of senses, that man of deluded intellect is called a hypocrite. And so here Krishna says that outwardly we might sit like we are sitting in meditation, but inwardly we are constantly indulging in our senses. Outwardly, there is a restraint of our sense organs, the Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas, organs of senses and organs of actions, and yet inwardly a man sits and constantly speculates on those very senses, and that man is called a hypocrite. Sloka 7. On the other hand, he who controlling the organs of sense and action by the power of his will and remaining unattached undertakes the yoga of action through those organs, Arjuna, he excels. And here Krishna says that it is a far better thing to control the organs of senses and action by the power of one's own will. Self-discipline and self-control is given great importance here, and remaining unattached to those very actions that we undertake. Krishna praises such a person and says he is excellent. Why? Because there is purity in his actions. It is not inundated by any kind of impurity. So their practice of Karmayoga through the organs of perception and action consists in performing those actions that are ordained in the scriptures, the responsibilities that comes with living in society, in a family, but through senses which are properly disciplined and controlled, and maintaining an attitude of indifference to success and failure, and without any value judgment, neither likes nor dislikes, accept whatever comes, whatever is offered as is. And that Karma Yogi excels, Krishna says. In Shloka 8, therefore, do you perform your allotted duty, for action is superior to inaction. Desisting from action, you cannot even maintain your body. And so here Krishna categorically states that if you renounce action, one cannot even maintain one's body. All the involuntary functions are still action. Therefore, perform your allotted duty, whatever duty is given to us. Execute it in a detached manner. Detached not in the act itself, but detached from the consequences of the act, without any attachment to success or failure, treating both of them alike, focused completely on skill in action only, for action is far superior to inaction. Shloka 9. Man is bound by his own action, except when it is performed for the sake of sacrifice. Therefore, Arjuna, do you efficiently perform your duty, free from attachment, for the sake of sacrifice alone. And so here Krishna now brings in another concept, the concept of sacrifice. And Krishna says that every action, every act of karma has a samskara attached to it. Every act of karma has bondage attached to it, except when those actions are performed for the sake of sacrifice. So when a duty is laid down in the scriptures and is performed in a detached manner without any desire for fruit, it leads us towards liberation. And therefore, Krishna indicates that action done in a detached way for the sake of sacrifice cannot bring bondage to man, cannot forcibly bound man to samskaras. And that is why Arjuna is being asked to perform his action efficiently but in a disinterested way, renouncing the results of whatever his actions will generate. Shloka 10. Having created mankind with their duties specified at the beginning of creation, the Creator Brahma said to them, "You shall prosper by this, and may this yield the enjoyment you seek." And here in Shloka 10, Krishna says that having created nature and having created mankind, there have been very specific duties given to men. And these duties are enjoined by the scriptures with due regard to their order in society and stage in life. Therefore, we have the four ashramas: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyasa. The student life, the life of a householder, the life of a retired man, and a life of a man who has renounced the world. And each one of them has their own duties. A brahmacharya's only duty is to study, learn. A householder, a grihastha's duty is to discharge his responsibilities towards his family and society. And also the varnas, the four varnas that was given to us, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. The duties of the Brahmin, guardians and protectors and teachers of spiritual wisdom. The duties of Kshatriyas, protectors, defenders of kingdoms and societies. Vaishyas, merchant community, bartering, building economies. And the artisan class of Shudra, the artists, the laborers. Every one of them has a role to play, no matter how insignificant it might be in the grand scheme of things, it is still a very vital role that they have to play. In the Ramayana, when Rama was constructing the bridge across the ocean to Lanka, his Vanarasena, huge giants, were heaving huge rocks and boulders into the sea. And in the midst of all of such giants was a small little tiny little squirrel running around, scampering between their legs. Every time it would go dip himself in the ocean, roll in the sand, run across the bridge, the rocks, and shake the grains of dust, the grains of sand grains, shake the sand grains between the boulders, thus trying to fill up the gaps. The Vanarasena complained to Rama about the nuisance the squirrel was performing. And so Rama called the squirrel to him and asked him what he was up to. And the squirrel said, "I know I am not giants like your soldiers. I cannot lift up and carry rocks. But I too want to help, and this is the only way I can help." And Rama was touched by the dedication and the generosity of spirit that a mere squirrel possessed. And so lovingly he caressed the body of the squirrel. And it is said that those lines, the stripes that was left after Rama's harassment, is still permanent to this day, where generations after generations of squirrels still carry the blessing of Rama in the form of stripes on their body. An interesting factoid here is that the Indian squirrel is the only squirrel that carries these stripes. Squirrels across the world, Europe, Australia, etc., they do not have stripes on their body. And so we come to the end of this session today. Om Yogesham Satchidanandam Vasudevam Rajapriyam Dharma Samstapakam Veeram Krishno Vande Jagat Gurum Shri Krishno Vande Jagat Gurum. Om Shri Krishnarpanamastu.